dann auch weitreichende.
We are starting with Wednesday and a statement made by Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz. He said during the parliamentary questioning in the Bundestag that attempts are being made to supply Ukraine with weapons and ammunition with a range greater than 100 kilometers. He also said that it is, of course, a matter of enabling Ukraine to carry out defensive military interventions with a range of 80 kilometers, 100 kilometers, or even more than 150 kilometers. And at the end of my segment, you get a little bit more context. On Thursday, it became known that Germany has handed over demining equipment to the Explosive Ordnance Department of the National Police of Ukraine and the expert service of the State Scientific and Technical Export Center of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Ukraine. On the same day, we got very sad news from Ukraine. The International Legion informed the Redaktionsnetzwerk Deutschland, a German newspaper, that a German volunteer fighter named Stefan was killed on Wednesday in a Russian artillery attack. The 37-year-old had been fighting in and for Ukraine since April 2022. On the day of his death, he was working with a drone reconnaissance unit, and his dugout had been hit and collapsed. He could only be recovered dead. He is the second German volunteer fighter to die in and for Ukraine in the recent weeks alone. And as the last item for this week, to brighten up the mood a bit, following the meeting of the Weimar Triangle, so France, Germany, and Poland, in Berlin, Germany's chancellor announced the following immediate measures together with the French president and the Polish prime minister to support Ukraine. First, immediately more procurement of military aid for Ukraine on the entire world market. Second, the expansions of the production of military equipment also in cooperation with Ukraine. Third, the establishment of a new capability coalition, which is called Far-Reaching Rocket Artillery. And fourth, increasing support for Ukraine within the EU framework, like the 5 billion euros via the EPF, the European Peace Facility, strengthening the training mission, and using profits from frozen Russian assets to buy weapons for Ukraine. Of course, these are only announcements for the time being, and we have to see how quickly the various points are implemented in practice. But nevertheless, this is a step in the right direction, in my opinion, and could have major impact. Firstly, I think it is very important that military aid is also procured on the entire global world market. This used to be a major limiting factor at EU level, for which France in particular is said to have been to blame. So I think this could also have could also be a major step forward at the bilateral level. And then we will have to see how the new capability coalition is to be implemented. But I already mentioned at the beginning of my segment that Scholz is supporting the delivery of weapons and ammunition with a range of around or even more than 150 kilometers, and has already mentioned Mars 2, so rocket artillery, as an example, days before the announcement, together with the Polish and French side. So I think that's exactly what we can imagine. So they are buying weapons and ammunition in the US and in other countries with a range of at least 80 kilometers and provide them to Ukraine. At least that's what I expect from it. And the use of profits from frozen Russian assets in our countries to buy weapons for Ukraine should, of course, also be not underestimated either. Yeah, and that's my segment for this week.
Maurice, real quick, what is
Yeah.
the Weimar Triangle? Is that something that was created specifically for Ukraine, or is it something else?
No, that was created earlier. I actually don't know like how long ago it was, but I think since the war in Ukraine started, I might be wrong on this, but I think that since the war started in Ukraine in 2022, this is the first meeting of all three countries. And I think, don't want to blame anyone specifically, don't get me wrong, but I think that with the German and French side, a meeting uh, um, would be possible to do that earlier. But I think with the previous Polish government, it wasn't like yeah. And thanks to Bionado, who actually wrote something in the chat right now. So further explanation: the Weimar Triangle is a regional alliance of France, Germany, and Poland created in 1991 in the German city of Weimar, and that's why it's called Weimar Triangle. But it's created in 1991.
Okay, so it sounds like it's sort of a strategic coordination that happens every few years. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
I actually don't know like how often they meet. I just know, or I just think that it is the first meeting since 2022, since the war
Got it.
started in Ukraine. Yeah.
Okay,
So
yeah,
it's
just
not
trying to give
happening
people
that
like
often.
a general picture of like what it is so that they kind of understand.
Yeah,
Cool. Thanks for your segment, Maurice.
yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, so I think we're just have you Q&A stuff now. Yeah, do we have any stuff in the chat? I guess we can start with Kellen since we're already on your topics, German aid. One thing I should mention, I have been calling Maurice lately. I did get Maurice's permission to do that first off, which feels good. But number two, I think it comes up because saying a lot of times we're talking about you in the context of German aid to Ukraine, and so it feels redundant to say German aid to Ukraine. Can you tell us what German aid has been sent to Ukraine? Right. So it feels it's in terms of verbal repetitiveness, it's a lot easier to have a different name for you sometimes. But anyways,
Yeah, it's fine.
we'll start with Kellen's question. Do you think Germany will send more Patriots to Ukraine? What will likely change after the Scholz-Macron test meeting, the Weimar Triangle meeting?
So the first question, full systems, I don't think so. At least not now. We have already provided 2 entire systems, 2 additional launchers, and at least 1 additional radar. So out of our 13 systems we had before the war, like 1 is the schooling system, which has not all the, I believe it has like 2 launchers less or something like this. So it's not a full system in the general sense, and then an additional 3 systems are out of service. So we already sent Ukraine a lot and way more than anybody else. Like the US only sent 1 full system, and I believe the Netherlands only sent 2 launchers, and of course everyone provided missiles. So I think that we are saying, hey, we've already provided so much to Ukraine in terms of Patriot systems, and we actually can't spare more. I can imagine that Germany says, okay, we are providing maybe 2 more launchers or 3 more launchers to, for example, replenish the Patriot battery, which was hit or maybe was hit. I mean, there's no 100% guarantee that it actually is a Patriot battery. But if it is, I can imagine that we would send maybe a couple of launchers to bring them back to a normal level, but not full systems. Yeah. And the change after the Scholz, Macron, and Tusk meeting, I just explained it. Like I think it comes down to how fast it will be implemented, like the various steps. But I think it's a great initiative or a good step forward, especially the far-reaching rocket artillery initiative or capability coalition. Sorry, and the use of frozen assets.
Yeah, it seems to me like, Poland's maybe another matter. Their kind of thinking is evolving in different ways. It seems very tied to their politics, but let's set that aside for a second. It seems like Germany and France have kind of they've come around on Ukraine, in various ways, but they've kind of both done it in their own way. So I think like them getting together to coordinate is kind of a good thing. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's from the Polish side, like or from a German perspective. I'm always a little bit not skeptical. Skeptical is the wrong word, but it's worrying to see, or it was worrying to see how the former Polish government has been acting towards Ukraine and also towards Germany and other allies. And I think it's the change in the new government is, at least for me personally, like a really, really, really good change. Yeah. And I do want to say, I said use of frozen assets. It's actually the use of the profits of frozen assets. Just want to make that clear.
Got it. Thanks. Let's give you a break. I got one more question for you from chat, but Colby, I just wanted to ask: do we have, because people were asking just a general update on the 800,000 shell stuff? Do we have any basically new information from last Sunday that we could share with the audience, or that you're aware of?
I think the most recent update is that Poland is going to participate as well. I think that came out this past week, so that would be new. But I don't think there's any other massive developments. So the latest would still be that there's at least enough funding to procure 300,000 of these artillery shells, but certainly more than that, because since they made that statement, there have been other countries. Oh, and Portugal as well. Portugal actually they pledged 100 million euros, if I recall correctly. So certainly the list of countries that is participating is growing. Some countries have stated explicitly how much they're going to contribute. Other countries have not stated how much they're going to contribute. So it remains a little uncertain exactly how much has been raised. And then some countries are pledging a certain number of shells that they're willing to procure. So it's challenging to have a very accurate accounting of it based on the information that different countries are willing to provide. But it's certainly above 300,000 shells now that they have enough money to procure. How much, I don't know, but it is above 300,000. And our friend Jeff has a running tally of the countries that have committed to this joint effort, and if those countries have disclosed how they're going to participate, he's tracking all of that as well. So if people are interested in that topic, I would direct them to Jeff, who's maintaining a log of that information.
Yeah, thanks, Colby. Yeah, I think, like, broadly speaking, it seems like the plan is basically on track. It's like as you said, 300,000 shells we know have been publicly confirmed to be secured. We've seen so many countries getting involved in the funding, the procurement, that we know that they've secured funding beyond those 300,000. And I don't know, just seems like it's all kind of progressing as planned, but we just don't have the specifics because there's so many countries and they're all kind of a mixed bag on what they report. So if you add it all up, it's not going to make any sense, right?
Yeah, essentially. I actually have a question for Maurice as well, if he's willing. Has Chancellor Scholz or President Macron elaborated at all about what this new long-range rocket coalition might look like? I don't think, I haven't seen anything, but perhaps there's something in German language media that you've seen that he or somebody else has commented on what Germany is thinking they might do as part of this coalition, since Taurus seems to be out of the question.
Taurus is completely out of the question, and it's not. I just want to make that very, very clear. A lot of people always say long range, long range. In Germany, nobody is talking about long range. It's always weitreichend, which means far-reaching. So I just want to make that very clear, because when everyone says long range, people always assume, oh, Taurus coming, and no, nobody's talking about Taurus. And I think it's, like, to answer your question, no, there were no details given. Like, everyone is now wondering what does it mean? Like, what does it mean for the Bundeswehr? What does it mean for Ukraine? Like, how is this stuff to be implemented? I don't think that, to be honest, it would be surprising to me if we, from our stocks, for example, would them send more Mars 2 MLRS. Sorry, I'm just a bit dizzy. Because we already sent them like 5 and don't have a really, really big stock. So I think it just comes down to ammunition, and then we are back to the to the statement made by Scholz like a few days prior to this announcement in the Weimar Triangle, when he spoke in the Bundestag, about Ukraine, enabling Ukraine to carry out defensive military interventions with a range of more or less like up to 150 kilometers. So I think that's what's going to be, at least from the German side, that we're procuring ammunition for Ukraine with a range of up to 150 kilometers. And that's it. So that's at least my assumption. There's no official info and nothing in the news.
Okay, thanks. And Germany doesn't really have any weapon systems that I'm aware of that would be in that sort of classification up to 150 kilometers. So presumably this is something that they're going to have to source elsewhere on the market.
Yeah, we don't have anything like we have basic ammunition for HIMARS, which is how long? 84 kilometers, about that. But sorry, HIMARS in America, in Germany it's the Mars 2. But yeah, we have to procure that somewhere else on the global market. And I think it's very important to notice that in the Bundestag, in his speech when he talked about this, he specifically used the Mars 2 as an example, so the rocket artillery as an example, and that was days before the announcement. So I think that actually gives us a very good understanding of what's to expect from this coalition, at least from the German side. And he talked about procuring initiatives, and they're trying to procure ammunition and weapon systems also outside of the EU. So I think the US is like very on the top of our list, where to buy stuff.
Thanks, guys. So just a quick question. Joey asks, will the William Attic interview be a podcast? So I guess just for clarity, we do have a podcast on Spotify. You can check it out. It's a little bit derelict. We started as a podcast and we moved to YouTube. And now we're a much more visual medium when it comes to all these things. So we're not putting the weekly broadcast on the podcast anymore. But I think like interviews and things that aren't like the news, we'll probably try to put it as a podcast. So I think, yeah, we'll make that a podcast and put it up. So, you're welcome to check out our Spotify. I hesitate to like super promote it, just because I would rather people go to YouTube because we've got all of our content here and a lot of our stuff's more visual now, but we'll make that a podcast. That's a good idea. So thanks for that suggestion. Next question was also for Germany. I thought I'd give you a break there by answering another question. Do you think the recently announced inspection of all Taurus missiles is significant for anything?
Not specific, no. It is true that this actually happened. I mean, Pistorius, our Minister of Defense, already said or confirmed the media reports by Welt. But he already said that this has nothing to do with Ukraine or something else, maybe a possible Ringtausch that's completely, I mean, it's not publicly ruled out. It just has nothing to do with it. He actually also gave a reason and tried to find my tweet here. I'm now quoting my tweet I made about it. He decided this to fulfill his responsibility and put the systems Germany has into the status, the systems Germany has into the status they belong if Germany wants to be capable of defending itself. So, that was his official explanation of why he's doing it. Because, I mean, it was more or less known that we have had about like 100, 150 of our up to 600, which are operational. The rest would be not operational. So yeah, I think it's great that they are doing this. They at a later stage they also talked about it at the Federal Press Conference, and the spokesperson for the Ministry of Defense, for example, said it's normal for weapon systems to get regular maintenance and regular overhaul and stuff like this. They try to of course like down talk this a lot, but even if they down talk it, I don't think it has anything to do with Ukraine, because in the end it's it's not about Pistorius. It's not about our like Baerbock, our foreign minister, or someone else. It's only about Scholz, and he has one specific rule, and that's no Taurus for Ukraine. And yeah,
Thank you, Germany, to Ukraine. So I think I'll direct this to Colby. Colby, how do we provide enough anti-aircraft missiles for Ukraine? I think, like broadly speaking, right, we have a few Western systems. We have Patriot, we have NASAMS, we have, I guess, Buk now can shoot Sea Sparrow, and there's just a few others. What's that? Maurice?
IRIS-T.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Iris-T, of course, and SAM-T and all that. So I guess like the question would be, do we have a lot of those in abundance? Like which ones? I think as far as I understand, NASAMS is pretty much covered because those use like mostly air-based missiles. I could be mistaken about that, but like, are there any? I guess maybe that's maybe a good way to put it. Like, are there any that we are maybe having issues getting a resupply for in terms of to Ukraine, or are they common variants that are just kind of all over the place that it shouldn't be difficult to send in quantity?
Well, for NASAMS and for Patriot as well, stocks are not particularly problematic. Production is pretty good as well. Could always be better, but it's certainly not terrible. The issue there is just the willingness to provide these things, which has always been the rate limiting factor for everything since the beginning of the war. Even though a lot of countries, particularly European countries, do have a lot or did have a lot of issues with not very large stockpiles, and the cupboard is bare in many cases. There's still a lot that could be done to supply Ukraine with more of what they need. So for me, it's fundamentally a political question less than a stockpiles question. Like NASAMS uses AMRAAM. There's a lot of AMRAAMs, and the United States can produce a pretty good number of AMRAAMs. So there's no challenge there where like, oh, the missiles just don't exist. Even countries in Europe, which again, their stockpiles are lower, they could give more. Yes, it would reduce readiness, but these are the difficult choices that countries have to make. They have to make a determination. What is the realistic probability that we get into a fight with somebody where we're going to need these AMRAAMs? And so therefore, does it make more sense to just give Ukraine more of our stocks, even though those stocks are rather small? For me, that's a pretty obvious choice. Like retain the minimum number that you need just for basically air policing, because the Russian Air Force is not going to be a threat to anybody in Europe so long as they are entangled in Ukraine. So it is not necessary for European air forces to maintain significant stocks of AMRAAMs. And again, most of them don't have huge stocks to begin with, but they could probably all collectively cough up a few out of all the European countries that operate AMRAAM. They can do that. The United States still has fairly deep stocks. They can provide more as well. Patriot, really the same thing. I mean, beyond what is needed for operational requirements, and European countries don't have the same operational requirements as the United States does, because the European countries are not, in most cases, operating globally. I don't think Germany, did Germany ever deploy Patriot to Afghanistan? Maybe, but they're not there anymore, right? Germany doesn't have, dozens of overseas military bases and operations like the United States does, nor does the Netherlands. So in some respects, European countries have more of an ability to deliver certain things because they don't have the same operational requirements. Like I've been very adamant for a year that Ukraine should just not expect additional Patriots from the United States, and especially not now after what happened on October 7th, because the demand on the demands on U.S. Army air defense artillery are just so vast. They just don't have the capacity to give up these assets, which are very much needed already. So it's extremely unlikely that another Patriot battery is going to be forthcoming from the United States. The missiles, sure, because again, there's deep stocks here and production is not bad. So these are things that can be given to Ukraine. It's just the political question is: are the politicians willing to make those decisions? Are they willing to overrule military commanders who aren't going to want to give up anything because they are by nature going to be cautious and don't want to give up any of their stocks? But this is why we have civilian control of the military and elections in democratic countries. Is these politicians are supposed to make those difficult choices and make a decision. What is more in our national security interest? Supporting Ukraine now or retaining stocks for theoretical contingencies that may or may not materialize? So hopefully that kind of gets addresses the question.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that really gets to the heart of the matter, right? We have enough of this stuff. It's just a political question. Can we get the will in place to send what's necessary to Ukraine, regardless of these kind of readiness questions, or obviously taking them into account, but being smart about it, I guess maybe a good way to put it. So thanks, Colby, for that. I think, Erland, you want to talk a little bit about, if I understood correctly, I didn't follow this super closely because it didn't seem, I heard it happen in Russia and I was like, it doesn't seem that important to me. But this is the helicopter that went down. Is that right, Erland?
Well, no, actually, this I just wanted to give an example to something that is, a very, very badly staged piece of disinformation or false flag. And I saw also Colby posted about it. So,
sorry, just for clarity, I think I'm talking about an unrelated matter then. There was a transport helicopter, I believe, in Russia that went down recently that was this week. But I didn't find any angle on it that seemed to have any broader implication. For example, if it seemed like they were short on parts to maintain their helicopters, I would have brought it up or something. But sorry, so you're talking about a completely different incident. Could you please describe the incident you're describing for the audience? Go ahead.
Yeah, so earlier today, messages about a supposedly Ukrainian drone attack on a Moldovan helicopter in Tiraspol in the Transnistria region, which is controlled by Russian-friendly, or let's say just Russian forces. Was it was spread around on Twitter and other social media, etc. But it didn't take many minutes before it was quite obvious that this was some sort of false flag attempt, but it was a very, very poor one. I stumbled over this thread, which just like shows how incredibly badly made this is. So you can see here, there's supposedly a drone hits the helicopter. First sign that this is a false flag attempt is that you can see that the helicopter is completely disabled, and very quickly people found evidence that this helicopter has been standing almost at the exact same position for about 20 years. Am I right, Colby?
Yes. The GeoInt crew who do all the geolocations looked at the satellite imagery from the past and could find that this has been sitting here for a long time.
Yeah, but from this video, like first glance, it looks like a drone hits the helicopter and it explodes. And you see there's apparently a small drone, and I don't know how on earth that would be flying all the way from Odessa, as they claimed. Very small drone. But there's something weird about the video. The drone kind of disappears here, and then suddenly the explosion happens. Yeah. So you see that there's some sign that this is just purely video manipulation. But the funny part is the explosion. Look at this. It's the worst false flag attempt I have ever seen. It is so bad.
It's like a 90s action movie.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, this is the first time something actually happens in this region during the war. There's been a lot of talk about Transnistria, about the ammunition storage in Kobasna, etc. But I wouldn't actually think that the first time something actually happens there, it's a really, really poorly manipulated video. And I think this whole thing is just an overlay. And then there's actually just a bomb that goes off inside the helicopter. That's what it seems like to me. And there were some other people who also pointed out the fact that the supposed drone hits somewhere that the fuel might catch fire, but it looks like the fuel that is catching fire is where it's nowhere near the actual fuel tanks. So, anyways,
Yeah, I was gonna say, it definitely looks like the windows get blown out, as if there's an explosion inside, like the way a kind of a building would blow up, from the inside. But I think you showed the cheap visual effect overlay. I think that really makes the case a lot better.
yeah, I mean, there was a lot of indications that this was a false flag, but this thread really pointed out how badly it's made. But yeah, I think it's a bomb inside the helicopter, and that's it.
I actually have a question about it, and you probably can't answer it. But like, if it's a false flag, right? We don't have other footage besides the camera, which is just hanging there, right? It's just this one. This camera footage, right?
So yeah.
Yeah, there's also like video of the wreckage.
Okay, yeah, but the impact itself, we just have this camera footage. So my question is now, when this is a false flag, and we got this evidence, let's say evidence, right, of it being like the drone is disappearing and it looks like a bomb inside. Why not just use? I mean, it's just a small drone, right? Why not just stay, let's say, 500 meters away from the cameras and stick the bomb you already have onto the drone or whatever, or the explosive itself to the drone, like you already do in Ukraine itself, and just fly 500 meters and actually strike the helicopter with a drone. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that it's not a false flag or that not a drone hit it, but it seems, for me as an outsider, it seems so stupid to do all this work with like faking the footage and stuff like this, when you can just attach the explosives you already have to the fucking drone and then just hit it with it. I mean, why do the manipulation?
Well, what it tells me is that the alcoholic gang of gangsters that are controlling Transnistria don't actually know how to create an FPV drone which can do that. So they just did this instead.
The impression I get with a lot of these incidents of like bad stuff like this, or like bad false flags, is the guys who are actually in charge of executing it just weren't competent. Like, they clearly, the people who thought this up were competent, right? They were like, oh, we'll make a false flag, it'll be a drone attack. Like, they planned it all out, and then they handed it to a bunch of clowns, right? With like amateurish, AV production experience, who didn't really understand the orders as given. They're kind of like mobsters, right? They're like, some smart guy at the top like handed the order down to like some dumb thugs, and this is like what they came up with, and this is the kind of end result of all that. But I don't know. I think another example of something like this is that you're a nuclear superpower. You need to signal your adversaries who you're in a war where your people are dying, and you need to signal your adversaries, stay out of my business, right? You need to stay out of my business. What do? Right? You've got some options. How about we release a video where we steal Battlestar Galactica footage and we say that's going to be what a nuclear strike on the United States looks like? That actually happened this week. So, I mean, these are the people we're dealing with. We're dealing with like absolute buffoons, I guess, is just the only way to put it. They're clearly sophisticated when they need to be. Like, there's some smart people involved in all these operations that understand our pressure points and understand what kind of signaling works on us. But a lot of times they're just like, in execution, they literally steal Battlestar Galactica footage and think it's going to scare us. Like, I don't know really how to encapsulate that in words, but I think these are the people we're dealing with, right?
Yeah, you put more sophisticated words into what I tried to say. That these are, it's just a gang of mobsters that control this area, and yeah, the people who actually executed this this operation were just buffoons. They don't know what they're doing.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
it's quite obvious.
yeah, it really contributes to the Russian mystique, right? Like, because occasionally in their actions, you see like a criminal cunning, or you see a real cunning in what they're doing, and you're like, oh my God, they're playing 3D chess. Like, the Russians are 5 steps ahead of us and this and that. But then the other times you see this just completely like botched execution where they're like, I don't know, I just put a bomb in it or like poison. I just threw some like really lethal poison everywhere and poisoned like 5 people in the UK and didn't expect any diplomatic consequences from that, right? Like, you see this combination of like pretty smart ideas with like completely brutal, dumb execution. And it contributes to this idea that like, well, they're being dumb now, but like just around the corner, that's a trap for them being smart, right? And I think it really like feeds into Western thinking about Russia as this like enigma, or as this like strategic genius, that like everything dumb they do is part of some broader plan. And it's not true. It's just, that's just how their system works.
Yeah. And then, yeah, we didn't really talk a lot about what has been the main topic in the news. And I just want to say that maybe we're going to do a stream on this, I don't know what to call it, operation in Kursk and Belgorod Oblast. The only thing I want to say is that I'm not very, very happy about how this thing has been handled by whoever commanded the whole thing. If we get in enough information, I think I would like to go on a little bit of a deep dive into it, because there's a lot of things that should be talked about. But yeah,
I know you don't want to get into it. Just one question. It's still happening, do we think? Or would you say it's over? Again, like, just what from your understanding?
certainly the PSYOPs operation is still happening. But I don't know if there is any. Yeah, according to Andrew, they're still doing stuff. But
okay, yeah, stuff's still happening. That was my understanding as well.
Yeah.
Just clarifying. Okay.
Yeah, but whether some of these are still or at all in Russia still, that is a different thing. But yeah, I think there's probably going to be so much video and footage of this that we will know a lot better what actually happened. But at this point in time, it's really hard to talk about it without going a little bit off to the speculation. Yeah, it's all going to be speculation of what right now. It's really foggy, but what we can see is that Ukrainian supported forces that attempted this at least lost a lot of vehicles that are really valuable. So that's it.
Yeah, for the news, I did report on it. I just kind of did my best. I did the official statement from Budanov, because I think Budanov's usually pretty candid about this stuff. And he just said kind of pretty standard things, which was like, we're going to be doing some of this. And then I just put the 2 statements out. Like, the Russians basically said, yeah, they sent some guys across the border. We killed hundreds of them. They retreated. Like, we win. Ha ha ha. And the Ukrainians said, or I should say the Russian forces, anti-Kremlin forces said, we were successful. We raided some areas. We still have kind of operations ongoing across the border, and we captured these guys. Here's a video, right? That's like, so I did my best to just cover, here's what the 2 sides are claiming, here's the videos they're offering as proof or whatever. And then, here's Budanov trying to give some kind of broader like context for what Ukraine's thinking behind it is. But that's all we really have right now. As you said, there's nothing solid. We don't have enough data, I think, for like a real breakdown of what's going on.
Yeah, I just wanted to address that. It's a little bit strange that we don't spend a lot of time talking about this, and the reason is that it's really difficult to be precise about what happened right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we do our best to wait on that stuff when we're not clear on it. I don't know. It sucks because like the internet, like by the time we're willing to talk about stuff, a lot of times the internet has already made its rounds. Like, whatever fake garbage they came up with about it, it's already everyone's already heard it and it's already done. But we do our best to like wait until we see all the evidence, or at least enough for us to say, okay, this is what's actually going on before, especially when it comes to things like this, where it's like a major border incursion into Russia by forces against the Kremlin, as it were. So yeah, we'll do our best to look into every piece of footage that comes out, and if we see something that's worth like discussing in detail, we'll do that. Cool. Did we see any other questions, Erlen, that we wanted to cover? Anyone?
I think we addressed most of them.